Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is MEFA's webinar on components of the college application. This is a mini webinar. It should last only about 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll just be going through the different components of the college application. So when students are applying to college, what exactly are they submitting to the colleges and the universities? My name is Meredith Barnhart. I will be your presenter today. I'm the Director of Integrated Communications here at MEFA. So let's talk about college application types and the different components. And I should say, as we go through the webinar today, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the question section of your GoToWebinar panel, and I will go through all of those at the end. So when thinking about the college application, there's actually a few different types. One of the most common is called the Common App, and you may have already heard of it if you have an older student or if you're already really researching the process to apply to college. The Common App is one application. Students fill in their information within that application, and then they're able to submit it to hundreds of different schools. So it makes the process a little bit easier. Some of those schools do require a supplemental application, so there might be more work for the student to do. But with the Common App, at least their basic application is done once and then sent to various schools. And that URL for the Common App is commonapp.org. So again, tons and tons of schools use that Common App. Another application is called the Universal College App. This is similar to the Common App in that you fill out one application and you can send it to various schools. It's gotten less popular over the years. Only about 9 schools use it right now, but you still might have a student who uses or needs to fill in the Universal College App to apply. The Coalition app is a relatively newer app. A lot of schools do use the Coalition app, I believe right now about 150. So same idea, student would fill out application information and then could send it to multiple schools that accept that Coalition app. And then there are a handful of schools, usually the 2-year community colleges, that may still require a college website application or a paper application. And then when thinking about what's actually in or a component of that college application, you can see that listed right, and we'll go through all of those. Most admissions officers will tell you that the most important component of the college application is the transcript, which shows the student's academic readiness and the rigor of the classes that the student has taken in high school. The academic readiness or really the high school transcript shows how much the student has challenged himself or herself. And college admissions officers are very well versed in each high school's different course selection. So if, for example, you have a student at a high school that only offers, let's say, 2 or 3 AP classes, and your student has taken all of those, then the student will have shown that he has taken all the AP classes that were basically offered. So he won't be compared to a student who took 10 or 12 AP classes at a school where 20 were offered. So that's good news. But college admissions officers do want to see that students have challenged themselves. Now, of course, if students have challenged themselves too much and taken classes that were a little too difficult and they ended up with a lot of bad grades, that's not good either. So students really need to kind of find their balance between taking some challenging classes, but also making sure that they are getting good grades in those classes. The transcript can also show basically what the student has or how the student has improved over time. Sometimes students have a little bit of a hard time getting used to high school classes, so their freshman year grades might not be the best. But the good news is that if students have improved their grades and their GPA has risen over time, colleges will notice that as they will see the grades in every year of high school. Exceeding minimum requirements is very, very helpful. So if students have only taken the classes that they needed to take in order to graduate high school or met the minimum to apply to a certain college, for example, the state system, that's of course not looked upon as favorably as students who have really gone above and beyond. So if a student only needs 3 years of science to graduate but has taken 4, that shows that the student has really challenged himself or herself and gone above those minimum requirements. It's helpful for students to show relevance to their plan for a major and what they want to study in college. So if I'm a student who's going into a science field, maybe medicine, it's helpful to see that I have taken as many science classes as I could have in high school. And then finally, for Massachusetts public colleges and universities, there's a sliding scale for the standardized tests and the GPA. So students need to actually earn a certain GPA in order to even apply to those state schools. But if they have a little bit lower than what's requirement and a little bit higher of a test score, they can still apply. So if you look on the Massachusetts Department of Education site, you can find those requirements. Standardized tests are also a big component of the college application. That's usually in a lot of cases, not every case, but in a lot of cases, the second most important component of the college application after that high school transcript. Most of you have heard of these standardized tests. The PSAT is actually just a practice test for the SAT, but it is helpful for students to take. It also can help them become eligible for certain scholarships. The two main standardized tests for college admission are the SAT and ACT. They both measure college readiness, or are the intent is that they measure college readiness. And there's free test prep online for both of these, so that's good news. Head to the SAT and the ACT official websites and you'll find that test prep. Students can work with their school counselor to find out really which test they should take. A lot of students end up taking both to compare how they perform in each one and then end up sending the scores for the better test or the test where they performed better to the colleges and the universities. Two other tests associated with college admissions are SAT subject tests. Some colleges and universities require these. These are tests in addition to the SAT, so they're actually different than the SAT, and they are subject tests. They are just tests that show subject knowledge. So it might be an SAT subject test in English or calculus. So that's something that might be required by a college or a university by the admissions office. So make sure you're aware of those requirements. And then AP exams are those exams that students can take after taking an AP class. And if they reach a certain score on those exams, they can earn college credit. So that's a choice that students can make. We've included the URLs for those tests at the bottom of the screen there. And it's also helpful for students to know about fairtest.org. That's a website and it lists over 1,000 colleges and universities in the country that are test optional, meaning students don't have to submit any kind of standardized test score in order to apply. Now, many of these schools will tell you that they are test optional and they do want to see the test scores of students who have done well on the SAT and ACT. So those tests can still be considered in the application for admission if students do want to submit them, but they're not required. So if you have a student who just really doesn't test well, you might want to consider that list. The college application also will ask for basically an activity list or a resume of the student. And that's where the student's reporting all of his or her extracurricular activities. Make sure that your student notates all the activities that she takes part in and what she does within those activities or the depth of her involvement. For example, is she a treasurer of the French club? Rather just participating in the French club, does she hold some office in it? Or for the track team, is she the one who organizes all the fundraisers or helps buy the t-shirts every year? So make sure as much as students can within that activity list, they explain their participation in that activity. Students should definitely make sure to include any employment, part-time jobs. So these don't have to be activities that are just school sponsored. Anything that has to do with working or volunteering outside of the school. Maybe your student is part of a club sport that's not associated with the school. That should still be notated. And maybe your student has family responsibilities. Maybe he drives his grandparents to all their medical appointments or takes care of younger siblings. That should still be noted as well. If there's any impact on the community, as I mentioned, volunteering or any other kind of service that the student is taking part in. Basically, have your students sit down and think about, what do I do every day after 3 p.m. till I go to bed? And what do I do on the weekends? If there is some regular activity, that counts as part of this activity list and should be notated on the college application. Next, of course, is the essay, and this is a big part of the college application. It can provide some stress for students who aren't the best writers or not sure what to write about. But this is really an opportunity for students to share more of themselves with the admissions committee. What is it that your student wants the admissions committee to know about him or herself? And that this is the opportunity to do that. Students should make sure that they, within their essay, share something meaningful and personal. So this is not a research paper. And a lot of students are used to writing research papers. So all the writing they've done in high school is about a certain subject or a time in history or a famous person. This is something totally different. This is where the student is sharing his thoughts, his passions, his opinions. So students need to really wrap their mind around what the essay really is. It's all about them and what they want to communicate about themselves to each college and university. We always suggest that students start writing early. That means in junior year, they should start brainstorming, maybe writing some practice essays, trying different topics and approaches. Plagiarism is taken very seriously. So as students are brainstorming, it might be tempting sometimes to look up essay examples online, and it's fine to look at examples and read them, but a lot of colleges and universities do have software now to check for plagiarism. So they can check if a student's essay was submitted by lots of other students or if it was taken off the internet somewhere. So do stress to your student that this needs to be his or her own work. And of course, students need to really leave time for careful proofreading. We have a lot of helpful blogs on MEFA.org about the college essay. So students and you as parents can take a look at those. You can simply put essay into the search bar at the top of MEFA.org, and you'll come across some great tips, some great ideas for topics, and some ways that students can really think about the essay before they start writing. The common application has essay prompts that they put out every year. And these are the essay prompts that actually will be used. They were used this year for students and they will actually be used next year. So if you have a high school junior, these are the essay prompts. They are also noted, of course, on the Common App website. So these are the prompts that students can take and run with to write their essay. As many of your students, probably most of your students, will be applying to Common Application schools, this is great news that these essay prompts are already known. So students can start taking a look at these, start brainstorming. It's even helpful to talk out these essay prompts. So maybe you take one of these per week, and at dinner, when you're driving your student to school or just around the house, you can just start really asking your student, what would you write about based on this prompt? Just start them thinking so that they have some ideas when they're really ready to start writing. Letters of recommendation are another part of the college essay that are often requested or required by colleges and universities. These are letters that are about the student written by someone else, usually a teacher or a school counselor. Students should really have adults who know them well write these letters of recommendation. And students should make sure they follow high school guidelines. So a lot of high schools have procedures in place for students to request letters of recommendation. It might be through MEFA Pathway or Naviance. There might be a form that students need to fill out. So make sure that they are following those guidelines. It's also important for students to start asking early. A lot of college admissions officers recommend that students ask their junior year teachers for these letters of recommendation. Senior year is a little too late. They don't really have students for enough time to know them well. Junior year teachers know students for an entire academic year, and they're the teachers that have had the students most recently. So have your students start thinking about what junior year classes have a teacher where I could ask that teacher for a letter of recommendation, and then they can ask in the spring and give their teachers time over the summer to write those letters. It's helpful to ask for a letter of recommendation from a core class. So maybe not an elective for your main letter recommendation, but a teacher from a core class, especially one that you think you might study, such as math or science, English or history, if you plan to major in any of those in college. But it is helpful if your student is interested in going into a certain field if there is a teacher that really lines up with that field. So for example, if I'm a student and I'm going to college, I might ask one teacher from a core class, such as my math teacher, to write a letter of recommendation, but maybe I want to study music theory in college. So for my second letter of recommendation, as many colleges and universities offer students to send in 2 or 3, I might ask my choir director or my music theory teacher. That would be helpful as well because they can speak directly to that passion for music that I have and my interest in that field. Remind students. So the 2 things are have them ask early, so in the spring, and then remind them to say thank you. Have them write a thank you letter. It is a lot of time that teachers are taking to write these letters of recommendation, and school counselors too. So it's so, so nice for students to then send a thank you letter after the fact. Interviews are a component of the college application that are only really used at a handful of schools, but this is another opportunity for students to let the admissions committee know more about them. This is a face-to-face conversation. There are actually 2 types. There's an informational and an evaluative. An informational interview is more for the benefit of the student. The student can basically interview someone from the admissions office, someone from the school, maybe an alum, to learn more about the school. And that's really just the student asking questions to learn more. The evaluative interview is where someone is interviewing the student and taking feedback from that interview back to the admissions committee. So that even might be a current student, it might be an alum, it might be someone from the admissions office. This is an opportunity for the admissions committee to learn more about the student. Students, when going into an interview, should be prepared to answer open-ended questions, such as, why do you want to go to college? Why do you want to go to this college specifically? And that's a very important question for students to be prepared to answer. What do you think are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? There are plenty of example interview questions online. We have some on MEFA.org, so students can prepare in that way. And students, if they're offered an interview, should go ahead and take advantage of that interview unless they really do feel like they're a terrible verbal communicator. If they're a little bit nervous, if they don't want to do it, but they communicate okay, they should go ahead and do the interview. They'll usually relax within the first couple of minutes, and the people interviewing students do a great job at really setting students at ease when they sit down for the interview. And again, the interview is a great opportunity for students to explain more about themselves and share something that maybe didn't come through in the rest of the admissions application. So that really covers all the components of the college application. I'm going to go ahead and look at the questions now. If you have any questions about anything I talked about or anything I didn't, go ahead and type them into the questions section of your GoToWebinar panel. If you have to jump off, definitely go ahead and do so. If you have any additional questions, we have that 800 number and email address on our screen, so you can contact us that way. And again, I should have put my name in here. My name's Meredith Barnhart. I was your presenter today. Also, we love Google reviews. If you're on Google, if you have a Google account and you want to leave us a review about this webinar, that would be great too. So let me jump over to the questions here. Again, type any in if you have any, and I'll go through them. And someone posted a PDF of the current sliding scale. It looks like I can't check that PDF because I don't have a browser open, but that does look accurate. Yep. And what I'll do is when I send out the recording of this webinar and a copy of the slides, I'll send out the link to that sliding scale. I'll verify that that's correct, and the rest of you probably can't see it. So I'll make sure that I just send out that sliding scale link so that all of you have that. Let's see, it doesn't look like I have any more questions. I'll wait just a few seconds if anyone's typing right now and has any more questions. But again, thanks for joining us today. For those who are still on, you can find out a lot of information about college admissions on our website. We also have our full college admissions webinar, of the recording of that, online as well. And we have a webinar coming up in just about a week, college planning for high school juniors. So that's another opportunity that's going to basically talk again about college admissions, a bit about financial aid, and what your family can be doing if you do have a high school junior to plan for college. Okay, it looks like I got all the questions. So thanks for joining us today. And please do contact us anytime this spring, summer with any questions related to college admissions and financial aid. Have a great day, everyone.